Hi, today we're going to talk about how we feed our starter to prepare for bread baking day. So I have taken my little bit of starter out of the refrigerator from last night, and so Polly has come up to room temperature overnight, and now I am going to start the process of feeding her a couple of times, little bits, before I feed her enough that I have a quantity amount for the bread baking process. The reason that I feed her a number of times before I do that larger feeding is because I want to make sure that the community of critters in here is very active, that there's a lot of bubbles and there's a lot of growth going on. And so I do that by some of that maintenance feeding that we talked about, maintenance style feedings that we talked about last video, where we just put in maybe a tablespoon of flour and a little bit of water and get it going, growing, and then I'm going to do that again, and then I will add as much as I need in order to make the bread that I'm planning to make. So I'm heating up a little bit of water, and we want to remember that the right temperature for the water is going to be kind of a bath water temperature. I just recently was reading something that said that maybe 80 degrees is even a good temperature for the community. So I've been experimenting a little bit with that. But again, I've done it so it's very comfortable for a bath water, which is a little bit warmer than 80 degrees, obviously, because that's cooler than body temperature. I wouldn't get in a bathtub full of 80-degree water, no way. So I'm gonna grab a fork, and I have some flour in a beautiful, isn't it pretty? Beautiful crock here. And I'm going to feed Polly a little bit and wake her up. And I tested the water just a little bit. And we'll stir it. I vacillate between thick pancake batter and thicker pancake batter. I'm just not consistent because baking is a fun experiment. But so today I'm going to make it a little bit thicker, just so that's what I feel like today. So that is her getting a little bit of a maintenance feeding, waking her up, and I'm going to put it in my oven with the light on, so that I'm going to sear that right there, so that it will have a nice, warm, consistent, draft-free place in order to grow and be beautiful and bubbly. So part of the growing the culture in the jar, I am an empty nester, as I've mentioned before, and I don't need a lot of room to make starter. But if I was going to have a big dinner party and I was going to have folks over, or if I was going to make loaves, multiple loaves of bread, and I was going to hand them out to my friends because I love them, I would then take starter, just even a little bit of starter. It doesn't even need to be the whole jar full, although it's a good excuse to clean your jar too. But I would make the starter in a larger bowl, and I would do the same process of flour, water ratio, and cover it with plastic wrap and a towel and put it in a warm place. And then I would be able to make a larger batch of starter to make a larger batch of bread. And so that allows me to keep my starter in a smaller vessel, which keeps the footprint in my refrigerator smaller, so I don't have to have this giant jar in my refrigerator. But when I need a more ample quantity, then I go ahead and put it into a bigger bowl. So we're gonna come back in a little bit and we're gonna look at Polly after she's sat in the oven for a few hours and see if she started waking up and doing her bubbly thing, and then we'll give her a bigger feeding. So see you then. Hey, so we're back this afternoon and I just pulled my starter out of the oven, which I actually just checked the temperature of the oven. It's about 80 degrees in there because my house isn't that warm. It says my house is 70 degrees. So keeping it at about 80 or warmer if your house happens to be in summer is the perfect temperature for both rising bread and for nurturing our little culture here. So my starter is lovely and thick and bubbly. See how lovely and bubbly it is? It's very fun. So it grew, probably doubled in size. And so when I feed this for my baking day, which will be tomorrow, I'm going to go ahead and fill this to about 50%, maybe a little bit more, to flour and water, and then it will have room to grow in here. And so I am going to, I should probably do this. Heat up some water first. So I'm also going to put some flour in here. I won't put as much as I think because it's easier to add it than to take it out. So we're gonna let this water come up to temperature a little bit. I'm gonna check it. Yeah, not quite. I'm very impatient. Which is good because my kettle goes pretty fast. Oh, I think that's lovely. Okay, so I'm going to add a little water to my starter. That's very nice, but it's not quite enough. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. I just got back from a mountain bike ride with my husband, so I'm a little bit tired. Oh, maybe the video that he took of me will actually end up on YouTube also, so you could see some of the crazy stuff that I get up to when I go mountain biking, and you'll see why I'm tired. Oh, see, that's kind of how thick, it's nice and thick, thicky thick. I'm just trying to get it up to about half full in my jar because I want to make sure I have enough for tomorrow. The recipe I'm experimenting with tomorrow is going to call for about 1.5 cups of starter. I've been using sourdough starter for probably a couple of decades, and I just got back into it again about 4 years ago, and that's how old Polly is. It's a little bit thin. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. I've been trying all kinds of different recipes I've been having fun with. English muffins and artisan bread, and I'm going to do this bread tomorrow and see if I can't simplify the process so I can explain it to a friend of mine who's just getting into it so that it's not such a complicated process. Ooh, drop that. See, tired. So my jar is about half full and it's pretty thick. See? And I'm going to put it back in my lovely 80-degree oven. Where it will sit until tomorrow morning when I am ready to put my dough together. So to recap, when you want to use your starter for a baking day, you will want to take your jar out of the refrigerator if that's where you choose to keep it. I have goofy hands. And leave it out on the counter. You don't need to feed it yet. Just leave it for a few hours. If you take it out late in the evening, overnight is fine. So pull it out, let it warm up on the counter and at room temperature, and then the next morning, then feed it one of those little maintenance feedings just to wake it up and say, hey everybody, let's grow. And then you might even want to do it twice. Depends on how active it looks. If it looks like what Polly looked like when I pulled her out of the oven, where lots of bubbles and there's all kinds of activity, then don't worry about doing it twice, in my opinion. Just go ahead and make as much starter as you want, filling it up with flour and water to make that nice thick pancake batter. And then put it back in the oven, and then it will be ready when it's all multiplied and expanded and bubbly and wonderful. Then it'll be ready to be put into your recipe. So, and if you need more starter than your jar's capacity, remember that you can put it in another vessel. You don't have to be limited by the size of your jar. You don't need to have a jar so big that it will contain every possible quantity of starter that you ever want. You can always put it in another container so that the footprint in your refrigerator is of a smaller size. And honestly, your jar doesn't have to cost $100 to be able to get, because if I make a half-gallon jar, some folks have asked me for half-gallon jars, and I have a tendency to ask, why do you want a half-gallon jar? What's your process? And so if I can save you money by selling you a $65 jar instead of a $100 jar, I would love to do that, because I like saving people money. I like you to have a beautiful thing, but you don't need the biggest thing that there is out there. So, so I think that about covers getting ready for baking day. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Good morning. I thought that I would come back and talk to you guys just for a minute. Yesterday we fed Polly and we put her in the oven in order to have her have a stable environment with the right temperature and draft free and all that kind of stuff. Well, this morning I got up, made my cup of coffee, and got ready to bake bread, and I wanted to tell you how it turned out. So I decided yesterday that Polly looked very active, and so I decided to put her in another bowl just because basically I'm a lazy person, so cleaning it up if she had barfed all over my oven would have made me sad. So I did put her in another oven, in another bowl, not another oven, just this one. And she did, in fact, she is more active right now than I think I've ever seen her be active. And see how lovely and bubbly she is. That's very exciting. So just as a tip, it's no harm, no foul when your starter overflows a little bit unless you didn't put it in another vessel to protect your oven. So I would recommend doing that. Like I said, I've never seen Polly go this bananas before. So you guys made her really excited apparently. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.